"You'll never be partner material, Mackenzie," my boss David Brennan said, his voice cutting through the entire 42nd floor like a blade. I wasn't in his office, I was at my desk, surrounded by 12 junior associates, 3 paralegals, and the entire litigation team. The words hung in the air like a verdict delivered in the Supreme Court itself, and everyone was watching to see if I'd crack. I didn't crack. I smiled, typed one more email, and kept working like he'd just complimented my spreadsheet formatting. But here's the thing about being publicly humiliated in a prestigious law firm: it never really leaves your system. It infects everything. Every coffee you make for yourself becomes a reminder that you're not good enough. Every "you did great work on that brief" from a junior associate feels like pity. And every quarterly partnership evaluation becomes a small death. That was 3 years ago. Back then, I was the golden girl of Brennan and Associates, hardworking, ambitious, pulling 80-hour weeks, bringing in $2.3 million in billable hours annually. I was also, apparently, fundamentally unsuitable for advancement. Why? Because I was a woman in my early 30s who didn't play golf, didn't drink whiskey like water at the partners' lunches, and had the audacity to take 2 weeks off when my mother had a stroke. Family obligations show lack of commitment, David had said during my evaluation that year. Partnership requires 110% dedication. 100% simply isn't enough. The other partners nodded. There were 6 of them, all men over 55, all with 3 ex-wives and complicated relationships with their adult children. They voted unanimously to deny my partnership track advancement. I remember sitting in my apartment that night, looking at my student loan statements, another $340,000 in educational debt from undergrad and law school, my rent, $3,200 for a studio in Midtown, and my savings account, $87,000. I was making $320,000 a year at one of Manhattan's most prestigious law firms, and I felt like I had nothing. That's when I got the call from my real estate contact, Marcus Webb. Marcus had been my college roommate's cousin, a commercial real estate investor who'd approached me 5 years earlier with an interesting proposition. "Mackenzie," he'd said back then, "I know a landlord looking to sell his commercial buildings. He's tired of managing properties. The main building, 42 stories, prime Manhattan location, currently leased to a major law firm, is being sold at a steep discount because the owner's health is failing." I'd laughed at him. "Marcus, I'm a lawyer. I know nothing about real estate. You know contracts. You know finance. You know how to think strategically. That's 95% of real estate investing. Plus, I'll handle everything operational. I just need a partner with capital and a sharp legal mind." I'd agreed to a consulting role, reviewing contracts and lease agreements. It was meant to be a side project, a way to earn an extra $50,000 a year and learn something new. But Marcus was brilliant. He found undervalued commercial properties, secured them at below-market prices, and leased them back to businesses at market rates. The cash flow was extraordinary. Over 5 years, my small initial investment of $200,000 had turned into $4.8 million in equity across multiple properties. Then came his phone call the day after my partnership rejection. "Mackenzie, the main Manhattan building just came on the market again. The law firm leasing it, Brennan and Associates, their lease is up for renewal in 6 months. The current landlord wants out. He's listing it at $187 million. Below market value because he's retiring." I knew exactly which building he meant. I'd walked into that building every single day for 8 years. It was where David Brennan had just destroyed my career aspirations in front of the entire office. "How long do we have to decide?" I asked. "The owner wants to close within 3 weeks. He's motivated. We could probably negotiate down to $179 million. I did something I'd never done before. I called my accountant, my financial advisor, and my business mentor. I explained the opportunity. Then I made a decision that would change everything. "Marcus, acquire the building. I'm liquidating enough investments to cover 51% of the purchase price. You handle the other 49% and the operational management. I want to own this one outright." 3 weeks later, Mackenzie Investment Holdings owned the entire building that Brennan and Associates called home. The transaction was kept completely private. No press release, no announcement. Just me, Marcus, a $93 million personal investment, and the knowledge that every partner at that firm was now technically my tenant. I didn't immediately tell anyone. I kept showing up at the office, working 70-hour weeks, billing clients, litigating cases. I continued being the associate who was brilliant but ultimately lacking partnership potential. I watched David Brennan review my work, praise it publicly, then deny me advancement. I listened to him describe me in partnership meetings as valuable but limited in vision. Then, 6 months after acquiring the building, something unexpected happened. The firm's CFO, Robert Patterson, called an emergency meeting with all the senior associates. 12 of us filed into the conference room on the 38th floor, not knowing what we were walking into. Brennan and Associates needs to renew our lease, Robert announced, scrolling through documents on his laptop. The building owner has decided to restructure the terms. We're currently paying $8.2 million annually for all 42,000 square feet. The new owner is asking for $12.5 million annually, or we have 90 days to vacate. The room erupted. That's a 50% increase, someone shouted. We can't absorb that kind of rent hike, another associate said. David Brennan stood up, his face reddening. Who's the new owner? This is insane. I'll call them personally and, Robert cleared his throat. The new owner is a holding company. It's represented by an investment firm called Mackenzie Holdings LLC. Silence. Dead, complete silence. I watched David's face. He was trying to piece it together, and I could see the exact moment the calculation completed in his brain. He turned and looked directly at me. Mackenzie, he said slowly. Your holding company? I'd been waiting for this moment for 3 years. I smiled the same smile I'd smiled when he destroyed me in front of the office, the same smile I'd maintained through every partnership denial, every condescending comment, every moment of being told I wasn't enough. Actually, I said, standing up from my chair, I have a phone call coming in from my building's management office. They want to schedule a meeting with the partners. I believe they want to discuss lease terms personally. I left the conference room before anyone could respond. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in a small office on the 40th floor that I rented under a false name 18 months ago, just in case. It overlooked the entire city, and through the windows, I could see the Hudson River glinting in the afternoon sun. My phone buzzed. Marcus, they're panicking. Apparently, Brennan is trying to find another building to relocate the entire firm. He just learned who owns this one. I didn't respond. Instead, I waited. At 4:47 p.m., there was a knock on the door. David Brennan walked in, his face a carefully controlled mask of professionalism that barely concealed absolute fury. Mackenzie, he said, sitting down without being invited. This is quite the surprise. Is it? I asked, genuinely curious. I've been working in this building for 8 years. In fact, I was working here the day you told me I'd never make partner. I remember exactly where I was standing when you said it. David's jaw tightened. You manipulated us. You hid your financial interests too. To what? I interrupted. To what, exactly? I invested my own money in a commercial property. That's not manipulation. That's called making smart financial decisions. You, on the other hand, have spent 8 years telling me I lack the judgment and vision necessary for partnership, while simultaneously making me rich by having me work in a building I own. He started to speak, but I continued. Let me explain the new lease terms, I said, sliding a document across the desk. I'm reducing your annual rent to $9.8 million. That's actually lower than you're currently paying, and significantly lower than market rate for this prime Manhattan location. David stared at the document. Why would you do that? Because here's what's going to happen next. You're going to go back to your partners and tell them that you negotiated a favorable new lease. Then you're going to come back to me with one simple request. Mackenzie Powell becomes a partner in Brennan and Associates, effective immediately, with the same equity percentage as the other senior partners. Absolutely not, David said, standing up. I won't be blackmailed. You're not being blackmailed, I said calmly. You're being offered a choice. Option A, you accept me as a partner, we continue at $9.8 million annually, everyone's happy. Option B, I enforce the market rate lease of $12.5 million annually, and you relocate your entire firm somewhere else. Given the disruption and cost of relocation in today's market, I estimate option B will cost your firm approximately $18 million over the next 2 years. Plus the reputational damage of being forced out of your home of 30 years. David's face was now the color of a rare steak. This is extortion. This is real estate, I said. Welcome to the world of high-stakes negotiation. It's significantly different from the conference room discussions you've been having, isn't it? The stakes are actually real. You'll never work in this industry again, he threatened. I'll make sure of it. You're welcome to try, I said, but I'd like to point out that I don't actually need to work for your firm anymore. I own the building that generates $9.8 million in annual passive income. I have a real estate portfolio worth $47 million. I'm financially independent in a way that you won't be for another 15 years, if at all. I stood up, indicating that the meeting was over. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, I'm enforcing the market rate lease. And I'm terminating your occupancy in 90 days as per the lease terms you currently signed. My building management office will be in touch. David left without another word. I watched him go, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. For 8 years, I'd internalized his judgment as truth. For 8 years, I'd believed that my worth was measured by his approval. For 8 years, I'd let one man's opinion of my potential become my ceiling. Now I was rewriting the entire structure. The firm's board met for 3 hours that evening. I heard through Marcus, who had contacts everywhere, that the conversation was brutal. Robert Patterson had apparently done the math independently and confirmed that relocation would be catastrophic. The younger partners, eager to maintain their comfortable arrangement, voted to accept my terms. 24 hours later, David called me personally. His voice was controlled but dead inside. "The partners have voted," he said. "We're accepting your lease terms. And we're offering you a partnership position, effective immediately. We're prepared to offer you 1.2% equity in the firm." 1.2%? I laughed. "David, my real estate portfolio generates more than 1.2% annually. I'm offering you a deal. I'll accept a partnership position with 4% equity, or I'll raise your lease to market rate tomorrow morning." "That's not negotiable." "Neither am I," said, and hung up. 40 minutes later, they accepted my terms. 4% equity, full partnership, and a seat on the board of directors. The announcement came the following Monday morning. "Mackenzie Powell has been promoted to partner at Brennan & Associates, effective immediately," the email read. "She will focus on our real estate and commercial litigation practice. Her insight and strategic vision have proven invaluable to our firm's direction." Strategic vision. That was rich. The same strategic vision they'd said I lacked 2 years earlier. The office erupted in chaos. Junior associates who watched me be publicly humiliated were now watching me walk past David's office in a $4,000 Stella McCartney suit heading to the partners' conference room where my name had just been added to the door. I didn't gloat. I didn't make a speech. I showed up to the office, I did my work, and I was simply a partner now. That was the most powerful statement I could make. Not anger, not confrontation, but absolute, undeniable presence. On my first day as partner, David actually had the audacity to come to my new office and try to explain himself. "Mackenzie, I hope we can move past this," he said, closing the door. "You're clearly a brilliant investor. I wish I'd seen that potential earlier." "Do you?" I asked, not looking up from my desk. "Or do you just regret that it turned out to be expensive not to see it?" "I made a judgment call based on the information I had at the time. You made a judgment call based on the fact that I'm a woman who didn't conform to your narrow definition of ambition." I interrupted. "You made a judgment call based on the assumption that someone who took care of their mother during a medical emergency wasn't serious about their career. You made a judgment call based on outdated ideas about what leadership looks like, and you got it wrong." David sat down, and for the first time, I saw something in his face that wasn't arrogance or dismissal. I saw actual regret. "What can I do to rebuild the trust?" he asked quietly. I considered him for a long moment. This man had spent 8 years telling me I wasn't good enough. This man had publicly humiliated me. This man had made me doubt myself so thoroughly that I needed to build a $47 million business empire just to prove to myself that my worth wasn't determined by his approval. And yet, "You can learn," I said finally. "You can actually look at the women in your firm, not as potential partnerships to deny or approve, but as human beings with talents and worth independent of whether they fit your expectations. You can stop evaluating women on whether they have what it takes to be partners, and start asking whether you have what it takes to be a mentor who helps them succeed." "I can do that," David said. "Good," I replied. "Because I'm implementing a new program. Every young woman in this firm gets an equal opportunity for partnership track. Same hours, same billing requirements, same evaluation criteria. And if I find out that anyone is being held back because they take time for family, or because they don't participate in golf outings, or because they challenge the status quo, that's when we have problems." "Understood." After he left, I sat in my office and looked out at the Manhattan skyline. The city that had seemed so impossible to conquer was now, in some small way, mine. Not because I'd proven something to David Brennan, but because I'd stopped waiting for his approval and created my own definition of success. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus: "Congratulations, partner. The real estate portfolio just passed $52 million. You're a millionaire 3 times over. Want to acquire another building?" I smiled and typed back, "Let me get through my first week as partner. Then we'll talk about building number 7. I'd never needed David Brennan's approval. I just needed to believe I didn't need it. And that, ultimately, was worth more than any partnership at a law firm could ever be.